The Legions of Athena. Chapter 25. Moonlight shone through the balcony windows of the Athon and into the throne room where Ares sat. He was not alone. Peering over the large maps laid out on the table was his sister Eris, while the terror god Phobos ranted on about their soldiers. Their champion Diomedes was also there, sitting in a corner on the floor as no chair was large enough for the man, but he said nothing. Not that he ever said anything useful in these meetings. Ares was barely paying attention to any of them. He sat with his eyes closed thinking. The war had proved tougher than he thought. He had not expected Athena to fare so well for so long, not to mention that his secret weapon still hadn't arrived. But he had hoped to drive the whole of Athena's army back inside the city well before it arrived. But they had managed to hold him off quite well despite their smaller army. Even the skies had not been cleared yet for his new pet's arrival. He opened his eyes and turned his attention to his sister. Eris, why haven't the Stymphalian riders not taken the skies yet? That was a priority. Eris's face grew as crimson as her hair on these words. It is the inventor's son Icarus. His father's death did not weaken him as I had hoped. Instead, he is enraged, and his prowess in the air inspires his men. And you, dear sister, are you not capable of dealing with this mere boy? Ares shouted. Soon, my lord, Eris stammered. Perhaps if I had the long-range cannons supporting my riders from the ground. Impossible, Phobos interjected. The cannons are needed to blind the Aegis with smoke. My tanks cannot reach the battlefield if they are being bombarded by the city defenses. Once more, Eris and Phobos began arguing again. Lord Ares was just about to tell the two of them to shut up when the doors opened and Deimos entered. You're late, Deimos. What pray be your reason? Ares said through gritted teeth. Bringing you good news, my lord, the god of fear said, a smirk clearly visible under his red hood. The beast is ready and fitted for battle. It shall arrive on the morrow. A smirk appeared on the war god's face, and all his commanders had turned to him on hearing this news. Even Diomedes had risen off the floor to heed their leader's order. Ares sat himself straight and said, Phobos and Diomedes, I want all of your troops as close to the Aegis wall as possible tomorrow. Deimos, use your units to make certain that happens as well. Eris, I want you and your riders to protect it as it arrives. I don't want any unexpected surprises befalling it before it reaches the wall. Ares then got of his throne, his grin wider than ever and a mad lust in his eyes, and rejoice, my comrades, for tomorrow Athens falls. Once more Maximus and his crew were fully packed and on the move. This time they were on the top floor of the castle again, and Max was once again staring at the doors to Athena's throne room. They were waiting for Elisha, who true to her word had them out of the hall the first thing in the morning. They waited outside while people ran in and out of the throne room. The entire castle was bustling with movement, which was good because this meant no one gave them a second glance. As they waited, they could also hear the sounds of skirmish from outside. The battle had already begun. When Elisha did arrive, she had no time for greetings either. Come on, we have to make this quick. I was needed in the barracks 5 minutes ago, she said. The doors opened and they stepped into the throne room, which looked nothing like before. The metal walls and the dome-shaped glass roof were the same, but everything inside it had changed. Athena's throne with her owl and olive branch symbol was nowhere to be seen. Instead, right in the center of the room was a large round table, with a holographic projection of the battlefield outside. The circular walls were all lined with computers, each one concentrating on a different aspect of battle, and manned by soldiers in uniform, too involved in their work to notice anything else. There were also large floating monitors which showcased live feeds from the war zone. Maximus wasn't surprised by this. Mounted cameras had been used by armies for over a century now to help the top brass get a better perspective of the battle. Mars used them as well, and they had been used even during the Trojan War, although the technology had vastly improved since then. Max remembered watching Achilles' final battle with Hector a long time ago, but the footage was in black and white and grainy, not to mention the entire fight was taken in a single camera. But here on the monitors, the battles were being seen in full color and all its gruesome detail. In fact, Minerva had devices called cambots that looked like a floating sphere with a camera poking out of it. These devices floated around mapping the entire war zone, even the skies. Among the people present there were familiar faces. The goddess Athena was sitting on a chair near the round table intensely watching one of the screens, and right beside her stood Odysseus, Achilles, and an elfin woman Maximus remembered as Lady Pallas. When they approached, it was Lady Pallas who spoke first. Elisha, glad you came. Your mecha's repairs have been nearly completed. You should be able to rejoin the battle by noon. Then, as an afterthought, she added, should they be here? Indicating the others. Well, they can't stay in the halls. Nearly caused a riot yesterday, Elisha said. Just clear one of the rooms in the lower floors for them now, Odysseus said. No, said Athena. Let them stay here. Everyone turned to the goddess, but Athena's own eyes stayed fixed firmly on Maximus. Max realized that their last meeting was more than strange, and wondered if having them here had anything to do with it. Is that necessary? Achilles asked. They can't help us. Perhaps, Athena said. But knowingly or not, they have been involved with the events that led to this war. Perhaps fate wants them to witness the outcome of this war as well. All the while, the goddess had not taken her eyes off Maximus, and when she finally did, She turned to the screen, leaving no room for further discussion on the matter. Soon the goddess was back to giving orders to her subordinates. "Put your things somewhere and stay out of the way," Odysseus told them, and it was clear from his expression that he too was confused by Athena's words. Elisha left soon after that, and the four of them awkwardly stood around trying not to draw attention. After a while, though, Maximus decided to take the goddess's advice and watch the monitors. Maximus watched the war in all its vivid detail. Soldiers clashed at each other with their lives on the line, the clatter of swords and spears and hammers all around them. Bullets sprayed across the field and there was blood everywhere. The sight of a soldier being stabbed through his chest plate reminded Max of Daedalus, and he had to look away. Whenever he tried to think of the old inventor's death, his head would hurt and he would feel sick. But the thought reminded him of the cube and how he had still not given it to Achilles. He had been so busy with the war they hadn't even seen each other all week. On one of the monitors, Theseus and Diomedes had found each other in the field. The barbarian king had dismounted from his chariot and let loose his 4 man-eating horses, and the beasts stormed, finding any who had fallen in battle, regardless of the color of their uniform, and digging into them. Both the champions had their axes and were waving at each other with such might that the shockwave from each hit pushed others back. But neither had the upper hand. Both seemed to be on equal footing in battle. "Send me in. I can take out the barbarian," Maximus overheard Achilles saying. He was a few feet away and talking to Odysseus. Max concentrated hard on hearing the conversation while not appearing to be eavesdropping. "There is no way I'm sending you out there," Odysseus said. "I have fought him before. He is no challenge," began Achilles. "He may not be, but this is war. Have you forgotten what happened back in Troy, before your fight with Hector? I fought Hector without the rage. I was in control," Achilles shot back. "After how long? And don't tell me you were in control. You may have held the rage at bay during that battle with your pride, but its effects still lingered," Odysseus argued. "You dragged his corpse behind your chariot, in front of his loved ones, in front of his kingdom. Was that you in control? That was over a century ago," Achilles said. "Don't take me for a fool, old friend. I've seen you meditating for hours on end. I saw your rage surface at the sight of Apollo and Helen," Odysseus said. "There is a reason you retired. I am sorry you are more useful here advising the goddess than out on the battlefield." Achilles was about to respond, but something on one of the monitors caught his attention. Maximus turned to see as well. On screen, no less than 30 ram tanks were heading straight for the defensive lines of the Minervian forces. They were led by a monster that stood tall at 20 feet with long, wild black hair, bronze skin, and arms as large as tree trunks. In one hand it held a bloody club covered in large spikes. The other held a large high-caliber machine gun that was so big it was usually mounted as the primary weapon on the back of jeeps. He wore red armor with gold lining like the rest of the army, and a large shoulder guard made from the skull of some hideous monster. It looked like something that had escaped from a nightmare, but Maximus knew it was no monster but rather a god. Phobos, the god of terror, had entered the war in his true form. "Looks like he's finally here," Odysseus said. "Pallas, is my suit ready?" "Fully charged and awaiting you in the dock. Argos as well," Pallas said. "Then I better be off for my date with the god of terror," Odysseus said with a smile, addressing the room, and with that he left for battle. This has been a chapter from Book 2 of the new World Odyssey Series, The Legions of Athena. Links to the books in the bio. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this chapter, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. See you in the next chapter.